This is my jig for my A-arms to be extended. I decide where I'm going to cut in the middle. This is the existing length. This is the 2.5 inches I'm going to add to the A-arm. And I'll try to give you step by step on what I do here. First thing I got to do is I got to cut this brace out, and then you'll see I've got this mark to cut and that mark to cut. Then I'll because I cut those and extend them, the two pieces don't line up together, so this piece has to be bent out about 1/8 of an inch. This piece has to be out about 1/8 of an inch, and then these come in about 1/8 of an inch. And these are my extension pieces, which I put in, and I'll put a rosette weld on each side, and then I weld all the way around both pieces. Then I put this back for my CV guards. That gets bolted back in because that bracket's going to move in position. It needs to be changed. Alright, we'll start on that and see where we get. Okay, the brace is cut out. They're cut in two, but you see how there's misalignment here, here, and here. That's why I've got to bend this out just 1/8 of an inch and this in just 1/8 of an inch. And then my slugs get plugged in inside. So let me get those bent, and I'll have it all fixtured up and show you how it assembles. I've got 3 out of 4 of these heated and bent. As soon as I get that heated and bent, I'm going to cool these off, and then I got to drill. I'll drill a 1/4 inch hole through on each one for my rosette welds, and then go from there. And now we've cut it in two. Well, I took the bracket off, cut it in two, drilled for my rosette welds on either side, and I laid this out to my 2.5 inches of extension. It's in the jig, and this was my landing point. This is where I needed to be, because I started at this point, and I make sure that I go square straight out, and that lines everything up. Now I'll get my rosette welds done, and then I'm gonna weld all the way around, and then the only thing left to do is put the bracket back on. Line the fixture tabs for the CV protectors and get them bolted back on. I wanted to stop here real quick before I put this brace in, because I got to do a bunch of grinding and cutting and fitting to get that brace to line up with the same hole. But this is I did my rosette welds in and out, and don't judge me too much on my welds. I'm not going to grind them off. I'm just going to leave them the way they are. There's the bottom. This is some thin tubing. What I don't use standard pipe because it's expensive to buy and it has a black coating on the outside. I buy the same thing in Schedule 40 pipe, but it's called handrail, and it's nice and it's actually clean. It's like cold rolled steel. It's clean on the outside. It just hasn't been pressure tested yet, and I don't need it to be pressure tested. But on to the next thing, getting that guard bracket back on, and then I'll come back with you. Alright, this is the end of the procedure. I got my guard bracket mountings put back on. Everything lines back up. I'll be able to put those back on with bolts. They had rivets in them before, but this is stretched, rosette welded around, plugged, brackets back on. This is a finished one. I've already done it. Got it all painted up and everything. All the brackets. This is not hard to do. And I find this works way better than putting wheel spacers on, because wheel spacers affect your steering something fierce. And I've done several of these this way, so I keep these brackets. It's just a piece of plywood and some aluminum brackets, and just, I guess you would call it geometry. Geometry's too big of a word for me. I just do what needs to be done. Now, the one thing I really wanted to show you guys, and I didn't have the opportunity where I was, and this is the first time I've attempted this. These are the upper aluminum ones. I did almost identical thing. The only difference is that the jig had to be different, because the jig on this side, the bolt holes for the A-arms was 1.5 inches apart, and on this side up here, it was 6 3/4. So this is where the jig come in really, really handy. But what I done was, I cut my A-arms. Of course, I couldn't heat these and bend them, so I butt welded a piece of 1 1/8 by 1/2 inch aluminum bar in, and then I used CAD drawing, which is a cardboard template, to make these plates. This is 1/8 inch aluminum top and 1/8 inch aluminum bottom. I would say I'm going to cross my fingers to make sure they're going to be alright, but I think this is going to be very, very stout. It probably added a pound or so, maybe, well, I don't even know if it added a pound to the weight on it. And but the next thing about this geometry is I got to move, because I went 2.5 inches out. This pivot point for the top shock is going to have to get moved 2.5 inches out. Well, not necessarily. You know, I just thought about that. If it's either going to go out or it's going to go down. Because if I go down, that lays the shock down more and will actually give me more travel. So this is about 2/3 of the way through on this front end stretch. The next thing on the front end stretch is these axles, which are pairs. They're not all the same, because on this Can-Am, the one on the throttle side has a long stem, the one on the CVT side has a short stem. But I'm going to get probably 120 wall DOM. These are going to get cut in two, and guess what? They got to get extended 2.5 inches. And I'll do the same principle there. I'll go over this. I'll rosette weld probably 3 places, and then I'll push these boots back, and right in front of that boot I'll weld all the way around the ends of those. And I haven't had one fail on me yet. I mean, I've tore the CV joints apart, or a boot tore and it went to hell, but I've never broken an axle after I've extended them. Of course, you would think the front end doesn't do much, but the bad thing about what the front end does is when you're climbing a hill and you're giving it hell, that front wheel has a tendency to super spin fast because of an open differential, and then when that thing hits the ground, that's where I'm breaking axles. Hopefully this Visco lock on this Can-Am will at least keep both front tires turning at the same speed, instead of a true open diff where the outside wheel can be going 2 times or 3 times as fast as any wheel on the bike. So I'm going to leave you here with this, because this is getting long in the tooth. On to the next one.